Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I am Nerder Doug, and tonight I am hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchist Ted, how are
And
you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here on the new Nerdarchy live channel, which we created to put all our live chats like this and our weekday chat and live gameplays over here. And then we'll keep our flagship channel with the kind of awesome RPG news, views, and homebrews that everybody has come to love over the years. So yeah, I'm super excited.
So I think this is only video number 2 on this particular channel.
Yeah, how about that, man? Look at that. I'm like a pioneer. I'm in there on the ground floor.
So I mean, if you're not familiar with who Nerdarchy is, you can always go look at the other channel and check out all of the fantastic RPG tips, reviews, and whatever else that we have over there. Over 3,000 videos and whatnot. But yeah, this is our weekly live chat, usually reserved for our patrons, but during this global pandemic, we've kind of switched over to letting everybody kind of check it out, see what's going on. And tonight we're gonna be talking about RPG related conditions, blind monsters, blinded condition, all of
A
that kind
deer
of stuff.
blind. Who
However
knows
we
where to
can,
go?
however we can get that to work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And as usual, I get the burning question out of the way. Tonight I'm drinking Lampari watermelon lime soda, which, as always, I will not reveal the brand of because they're not paying us. So,
Well, I will only be drinking water tonight. So yeah, that's all
good
I
old H2O.
indeed. So my first thing that comes to mind with blind is when we look at the condition, it's pretty rough. If Dave were here, he might be able to recollect the one dungeon that I ran probably a couple of years ago now, where I basically removed all light from the dungeon and light did not work.
Okay.
Now none of the characters were a warlock that had Eldritch Sight, being able to see in complete and utter darkness. So it was an absolute, mess, because everything the characters did was at disadvantage. And we were surprised at how many spells say at a target you
You
can
can
see.
see. Yeah, right.
So if you're looking to do something a little bit different, don't go on a long campaign. Don't do a multi-session arc. But if you'd really like to test your players and give them something that they're not really ready for, go ahead and throw them in a dungeon where light doesn't work. Dark sight is meaningless if there's no dim light to work with.
Mm-hmm.
It's just blackness, it's darkness. They have to fumble their way through everything, and all of those rolls that they will make are going to be at disadvantage. So you get to use a little bit lower powered monsters if they have blind sight out to a certain radius.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of fun with it, and I know I did. So
Yeah,
that
you're
was my
absolutely right.
first go-to.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on so many levels. I'm going to actually work backwards because you brought up a lot of good points, but that's fresh in my mind of just in general, like, any of the conditions, and blind specifically in this case, can really allow you to use like just low, like, innocuous things. Even like, imagine if it was just like a patch of violet funguses or something. It's like, if you couldn't see, be stepping on them and spurting spores all over the place. So that can challenge like any level of characters, and maybe, even a high level, it's like, well, they'll just fly over it or whatever. They have different ways, but it still like adds something with just a simple condition like that, right? Like just robbing them of that alone. And as far as like, yeah, having like a dungeon or like a one shot in a lightless environment, I'm gonna address that and answer Mark Dalrymple's question and hit on what I was going to talk about. So Mark Dalrymple's wrapping up Cult of the Reptile God, awesome adventure. I based my longest campaign ever started with that. And his players will be at 4th level. They want to run a modern module now. What Nerdarchy game module would you recommend? Gaze of the Void Eye, because that is exactly, well, not exactly, but it's very similar to what Ted described. And I'm pretty sure you guys could test us on this. It is like ability to see in the dark proof. Like we, it was just like that was a big part of the language, and they were just like, I don't want people with devil sight or a torch, or it's like no, there's just no way to see. It doesn't. It's, just that kind of blackness when you face the void eye. So if your characters aren't afraid of the dark after heading into that layer, I believe they will be. And yeah, that's a great thing to introduce to them, and possibly even for somebody else had a question earlier. Oh, it was Zip Warlock. Boy, we're just not. See, look at how useful that product is answering all these questions, and then we'll have nothing to talk about for 55 minutes. But our awesome supporter Zip Warlock, as always, has a question. Guys, congrats on the second channel. You're welcome. Or thank you. When it comes to blindness, do you have any thoughts? This is an interesting question. I'm running a character who is blind. I have a character in a game I'm DMing who is half Grimlock, and I'd love to cater some stuff directly to him. And my first thought was, like, as I was reading, I was like, here comes that question again, because I'm sure people will be pissed off by my perspective on blankers. But he actually had some nuance there, is like, doing things to make that more relevant and stuff. And that seems interesting. You have any thoughts on that? I mean, I do, but I was just curious what you thought.
I mean, it's a little bit, dangerous. I try not to, go too far afield from, the regular races or, whatnot. I mean, I don't have a problem creating my own, but half monster races wind up getting a little bit challenging. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, is he looking for a race that has blind sight?
No. I think what I took it is like there's a character in his campaign that is half Grimlock, and he didn't specify what that meant. But like, is there things he can do to like maybe make that experience more relevant for the player? And like, so what I was thinking is just like, well, they I was looking up the stat block, and it is based on their other senses, right? Because they can't. Let me look it up real quick. They can't use their blind sight while they're deafened or unable to smell. So it's basically like they're relying on these other senses. So just playing with that would be fun. Like they could be disabled that way, but they'd also have enhanced that way too. Like they might detect dangers or things that the other characters wouldn't. So just kind of like keep it in mind to describe. You kind of take it for granted usually when you're describing things that people have five senses like
Well, I mean, if you really want to go into a little bit with that, I mean, I would look at, I know a lot of people didn't really like it, but look at Daredevil,
Yeah.
The Daredevil movie or the Daredevil
Mhm.
TV show, and they talk about how, the other senses become enhanced, flavors are become much richer. Some flavors could be too much. It's too bold, it's too strong. So
Mhm.
like, seasoning has to be less, but hearing, you might wind up having, things that, perhaps they get
Thunderwave wouldn't feel too good, right?
Thunderwave probably,
And that doesn't have to be mechanical, but I mean, because it doesn't. I mean, there is no
well, I mean,
mechanical reason
if
why,
you
but you could
wanted to
certainly
go,
describe how it's like, oh, it just is blasting in your eardrums.
I mean, if you wanted to go mechanical, you might say that, that character gets a perception check before others, related to this thing or
Yeah,
to that thing. You don't want to make that character, overshined with his
no,
ability
just
because,
different.
but every once in a while, yeah, go into these kind of things.
Mhm.
Perhaps, there is a scent that that character remembers from an earlier dungeon or, something.
Yeah,
They might be able to detect a shapeshifter or something. So like look for those things where, you know, you can get into one of those other four senses and bring it out.
and along those
Because
same lines, you could encourage the player to play more like that. But like any kind of quirk, I think it was just in a video, one of our videos the other day, you guys mentioned, quirks and all those things are fun, but it's like you don't have to do it constantly. It's like we get it, like you got super
absolutely.
senses. It's like you can do it a couple times a session, and you could just assume that your guy has better senses or whatever. But
And when you get into your role playing, like, okay, I want to feel what the wall feels like. What is the material of the book?
right,
What's the texture? So like those are the things that your character could be searching for. But
yeah,
like, I I'm very leery to limit a character's senses just because when you have these kinds of things, sometimes somebody is honestly looking to do it for role playing. And
Mhm.
when that's great, that's great. But, every once in a while you get those questions are like, hey, I want my character to be blind, but I don't want any disadvantages to it.
Well, for the longest, actually, right up until just like a half hour ago, I like kind of puzzle pieces found a place because I'm like that too. I had a player in my game that wanted to play the Zatoichi's blind swordsman, which is totally cool. I think it's an awesome trope and everything. But yeah, like it, it's still a condition, so
Right.
there is disadvantages to it, and I got no problem. I just told him that it's like, well, you're gonna have disadvantage on all your attacks and this and that, and it was fun for both role playing and mechanical, and he was totally cool with it for one session, and then he realized like, oh yeah, this sucks. So I was thinking, if it was just for like flavor and stuff, I guess I wouldn't have a problem if a player wanted to just say their character was blind and they got by on all their other senses, and it just had no mechanical thing. It's like if somebody casts blindness on you, you're blind. I mean, you just can't. It's going to affect you, right?
That
Like so,
particular,
if it's just for role playing, it's like, well, then who cares? I mean, really.
for that particular effect, that spell would be like mute the senses, not
Yeah.
blind.
Right. Right.
So, like, you would still get those mechanical benefits or deficits, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Also,
so
okay.
therefore you really want to look at it as if you want to do it to say, all right, well, I'm blind. Okay, well, you have your eyes covered, you don't really work. Perhaps you don't understand colors, perhaps you don't understand certain things,
Yeah.
but you hear movement and you're able to know where people are
Uh,
through the where how they move. Sure, there's no mechanical deficit to saying your character is blind.
yeah.
Sure, that's how you can do it, but you
It,
got to you
it,
got to go through the role playing. You got to get through those things.
right. And to your point, you mentioned Daredevil. I mean, he basically can see. I mean, really, you know what I mean? It's like the way they describe it and stuff. And I'm a long time Daredevil fan in comics where it's like he can see. I mean, not in the conventional sense, but he probably sees better than you or I, right?
Oh yeah, completely.
Um,
He just like I love the scene where uh they're in a rainstorm, and that's
yeah.
that's how he fully is able to see her
I mean,
face.
in
That's
the comics, Daredevil can like read regular print because he can like feel the ink and stuff like that. I mean, it's like it's super senses. It's not just like he has sharpened hearing. It's like you know, it's comics. It's like superhuman levels, where it's like
right. Oh, I mean, and that's what he is. He's a
yeah, right.
superhero. So
So
you
in that sense, yeah, I don't care. Go for it.
uh,
Um,
now um, I wouldn't want a PC to kind of replicate those abilities. Um, if you want to say you're blind, you're not reading, you don't know colors unless you
right.
became blinded somehow later in life. Um,
You can't appreciate the sunset except the way it feels and stuff, and maybe the sounds of
right.
nature. But yeah,
So
right.
you can get into that.
That player that was played the black character, he was saying he wanted to like sit. I described like the tavern. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna take a seat over here and just like, keeping like turn my head to keep an eye on the place. And we joked like he rolled a perception check and failed. And we're like, yeah, you're just looking at the wall, like your face is like right here. Because he in real, he just thought he was like keeping an eye on things. One thing I've been thinking about lately, and this kind of ties into that, is we always on our games to have like verisimilitude and believability and stuff.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's also a game, right? And so if you just look at it like that, like blinded, it's just a condition. So whether you're a Grimlock or it's magical shadow over your eyes or you're just physically blind, it's just a condition. So it's like, well, despite all that, attack rolls against you have advantage and your attack rolls have disadvantage. That's all it really says. It says you fail, uh, you can't see, and you automatically fail any ability check that requires sight. Makes sense. And attack rolls against you have advantage, and your attack rolls have disadvantage. Doesn't say anything about like it doesn't specifically codify your vision into there. It's just a condition. So
Correct.
as believable as you want your games to be, they're still games. So sometimes I feel, I mean, it's, I don't mean to sound like a, prick about it, but it's like, sometimes, you get lost in that nuance, and that's why you end up with like peasant railguns and stuff. It's like, well, it is still a game too, like, so
Right.
that's a component of it. I mean, I love the storytelling.
So Zareth has a question here. Says, a friend of mine said, my greatest weakness when making a character is I don't humanize them enough. Do you have any tips to humanize my characters more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know, what works for me is I just really try to think like, what would this person be thinking and feeling and about their situation, right? So like that game we just played last night, I don't know if it was the most tactical thing, but like you had gotten grappled by that giant centipede and you were like the liege lord of our house, right? It's like,
Cool.
well, yeah, I mean, that's the way I played my character. It's like they're the last guys left, but they still, had pride in their house and all that. And it's like, well, this guy needs to live. I'm just some guy that works for the house. He's the only one left. So it's like, yeah, of course I'm going to run and like try to save you and stuff like that, right? Like, should I have shot an arrow from distance because I was safe? I don't know, maybe. But it's like, I always figure like, well, I'm really strong too. So it's like, maybe I can just pull the mandibles apart and get him out. So, and it worked. You get away. So I was felt that character had a noble death. And you got away too at the end. So
I mean, I don't know so much about noble. I mean, you did what that character would do, and I don't want to turn tonight's chat into commentary on Esper's game.
No. But if you gotta check it out, it's over on his channel. I had fun.
It's a scenario when you're looking to humanize. You want to look at all of the things that make you and see, well, what do those characters want? Ideally, you've got the capacity to look at, your traits, your bonds, your flaws, your ideals. All of those things allow you to help build your character. And technically, you've got the ability to build those up, build those out. I go to this well far too often, and it's not within easy grasp anymore. It used to live right here. Dungeon World allows you to build your connections to the other characters in the campaign when you're doing a session 0 or what have you. So honestly, like, try to look at, who is the life or death moment, in the party. Who are you willing to, throw down your life to save, and who is absolutely, me come first, if that's, at all possible.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of hobbies does your character have if you're going to have downtime? What kind of excuse me. What does your character do to pass the time when you're taking a short rest or a long rest? Do you pull out a book and sketch and write? Do you do poems? Does your character fidget? Are you constantly, as I am, have to have something in your hand just to be doing something? Having these little tidbits of information make your character a little bit more real, and a little bit more alive when you go to role play them. If you're not willing and able to make those hard choices, how are you going to make the easy choices, or vice versa?
Yeah, it's a lot like a roller coaster, right? I was thinking as you're talking, like, during slow times, whether you're traveling, and to give you a specific example, you probably said this 1,000 times on the channel, like, whenever I'm driving somewhere a long distance in my car, and after a while you're like, oh, I drove like 50 miles stretch or whatever, and you think like, man, in our games we'll like walk that to the next town, right? And as you're driving, there's like hills and trees and all kind, and there's no road, right? It's just a fantasy wilderness. Like, how do you being humanizing was like, well, what's that like for you? Is it like even a strong fighter in plate armor, it's like walk up and down hills for 8 hours in armor with a 50-pound pack and a great sword, and also you probably had to fight for your life more than once on the way against like things that were not even like beasts. It could have been like, oh, we ran across a portal to the abyss and some dretch came out, like,
But along the same lines, like you could make a character like that. That's what they want.
Right, right. But you know, in between those times, like you were saying, like, well, what do they do, and how do they interact with the other characters, and listen, and when you listen to the other players too, and maybe uh, interact with them during play, like that, you'll find they'll do the same for you, and that's when you have those cool like human moments, even in like an intense situation where like, wow, that must have been really hard for my ally to do because I know they were like afraid of that thing or whatever.
And that's the other thing is connect with the other characters.
Yeah,
My Thursday game over on Beneath Rain Domain, those games, like we say that we're a family, both in and out of game. There's a great rapport. The characters really work well together, both from a mechanical and story standpoint. Believe me, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are conflicts and things that arise, with the role playing, but that's what happens in a family.
yeah.
That's the kind of things that you're looking for. So, is there somebody in the group that kind of gets your goat with something, or do they piss you off by a certain mannerism, with the way they speak or the way that they walk, something, you've absolutely got the ability to, um, be frustrated in game and have it be okay with, how things unfold.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, man, I hate when that happens. It's like right, that idea is right there at the tip of your mind, and just vanishes.
oh, so like,
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, a lot of we talk about like in our games, it's like trusting the DM and to help you facilitate the story, and you can trust the other players too, or that's a goal to strive for, where like you can do those sort of things, like you said, where like you know and you don't have to be a jerk about it all the time. I don't want to say like, hey, you should always find a fault with somebody to play on, but you can explore those things. And it's like, I'm not telling you that, it's fun to do the role playing, even though it's a tense for the character situation, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you
yeah,
might have some quibble with another party member, and it's not you. It's not like me having a problem with Ted.
correct.
Right.
When you've got an argument between two characters, that does not necessarily mean that there's going to be an issue between the two players,
Right. Right.
and that is how
Unless they're not comfortable with it, then we're like, okay.
that's how great role playing can be done. Is all right, once the RP is over, we can just put that aside, and
Yeah.
we're friends again, and that's where you have to be able to draw the lines, and that's how you can humanize them. And we are far afield from the blind, from the topic of blind. So we have
A comment from Babidi.
from Babidi.
Yeah.
I'm seeing L's in there, so I'm trying to, like, how is that supposed to be? But no.
I believe that is a Dragon Ball GT villain.
Okay. I do remember watching Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and
Yeah, I
Dragon
used to
Ball
like. I
GT.
didn't like Dragon Ball. I like Dragon Ball Z and
I
GT.
I was in the same boat.
Yeah,
You know, um, I think I didn't was it Humana Man or whatever,
Yamato.
no, when Gohan grew up and he started,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. He was
I
like a
didn't
superhero.
I didn't like him.
No, I didn't. But I liked the Babidi. I liked Vegeta
Yeah,
basically.
well,
So and he died. And he died in the Babidi saga. So
so all right, well, that's understandable. Uh,
spoilers, in case you didn't watch a 30-year-old.
so, but basically, the question was is RP wise, can you say someone is blind, but mechanically they're not affected, and then if something causes a blind condition, you treat it as the condition and all of the deficits that go with. Yes, that's kind of what we're going at. That if you want to have a character who's quote unquote blind, but you don't want to offer any mechanical deficits, great. That's what you do. You have fun with it. I
Yeah,
would throw out that character should have the limitations and be able to make the choice of, well, I don't see colors and don't.
yeah, right, right. But
So
they're not going to be like bumping into the walls and all that kind of thing.
I
They're
don't.
like Linkso from Thundercats, right?
Yeah,
It's like didn't really, it didn't really hinder him.
We're pulling out all kinds of different cartoon shows tonight.
Yeah, why not? It's crazy, man. It's a new channel, new identity. Who knows? This is hey. Here's something crazy. So my birthday was last week. My girlfriend made me a red velvet cake, i.e., the best kind of cake. And she had gotten like a box of just old stuff from her parents' house that had like toy. Had a bunch of He-Man toys. It was cool, but there was one classic toy that she didn't even realize how nerdy it was, and it was it's green, so it's not going to show up. Of course, that actually looks pretty cool. This is a OG Bullywug of the Bog from the like old D&D toys with like the Umber Hulk and the Fire Elemental line of toys. So that was the cake. That was the cake topper. I know you can't see it because it's green, but it's not easy being green.
I got to see the picture online.
Yeah,
it is quite cool.
Yeah, I knew you guys would like it. Yeah, you guys like Bullywugs.
Yeah, and of course, my daughter saw it and she's obsessed with frogs. She's like, "Oh my god, it's so big! I want it!" Like, that's not gonna happen. But yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of, some of the old school, like from the initial line of where, like, it came in a bag of random toys that Gary said, "Hey, what can this be and what can that be?" And I've got a couple of those that I'm pretty happy to have on my in my collection.
Yeah. Hey, we had another question from Eric Mahurin. Sorry for mispronouncing it. How do you deal with uncomfortable player characters? A fellow player is playing a 12-year-old kid, and it's kind of awkward at the table. I played a 12-year-old kid in our Maximum Apocalypse game, and I hope it wasn't awkward. I had a lot of fun. I guess if it was, they would just other players just have to just mention it. Just have a talk. It doesn't have to be confrontational. Just
these kind of things are combated in two ways. Holy crap! Blast from the past, Ty Johnston.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Awesome, nice to see you, Ty. Haven't talked to you in a while.
My predecessor, the man who taught me to watch out for the word that. And now I'm going to infect all y'all. It's overused. Hit Control F on your document and look for that. And I bet you about half of them you could get rid of it. It would sound
cool. Well, I'm certain that I probably drive you nuts with that.
It's just everybody does. It does drive me nuts. I think it's funny. To be honest, it's just thanks. Big ups to Ty Johnston.
Ty used to be the editor on our website.
Yeah.
So
I learned a lot from him.
Super awesome to have awesome to have him here in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got to meet him in person, which was super cool.
Yeah, me too. At Origins a couple years ago.
But to answer the question that Erica has, when you're looking at awkward elements, awkward moments, these are kind of things that are best handled in a session zero. When players can all talk about, okay, this is what I plan on playing, and if it's a problem, that is the time to speak up. If you're not going to do a session zero and someone is doing something that is potentially problematic, potentially a push button moment, that is where you can just say stop. Oh my god, I can't talk. Say stop and try to go through and be like, look, do we have to go down this road? Is there an alternative character option that might be able to be played? I'm not really happy about this, comfortable about this, and it might mean, someone walks away from the table. It might mean, that someone's got to make a new character. And, these things aren't exactly ideal situations, but, at a time where we really have to care about each other, because, as I said earlier, we are looking at, the concept of a gaming group being a family, having these connections both at the table and between characters. You want to care enough about the other person not to do things that are going to upset them.
Yeah.
If you out of game have a problem with violence, and somebody gets overly descriptive about how they're killing, the orc in front of them, all right, maybe, that's a conversation. If somebody, is inexperienced in relationships and, they really don't want that kind of stuff at the table, well, then, we have those, moments where we'll just say, let's fade to black and move on. Everybody understands what is supposed to happen next without actually having to be, graphic or descriptive, and we then get to care about that person, that we're sitting next to or across from the table.
And let's face it, I mean, well, I don't know anybody that is short on character ideas to play, right? So it's just like I'm sure you can think of something else, if it's a problem, for the other players, right? I'm just and you. I mean, it doesn't have to be like you were saying. It could just be totally normal conversation. It's just like maybe there's something about that that's appealing to them that you can think of something else and think of a cooler idea or something that's more fun for them to play. While you're looking up what you're looking, Babidy's just he's inquisitive this evening. For the Moon Druid, when you gain the ability to wild shape as a bonus action, do you lose the ability to wild shape as a standard action? Two Dungeon Masters of different games were often debated. I'm going to look it up real quick. Is it normally a regular action?
So for all druids,
so then you wouldn't lose
action, Moon Druids get to do it as a bonus action.
So yeah, you can do it as either.
Well, what he's saying is, can you? What my thoughts are is he's saying, can you go from shape 1 to shape 2
in the same round?
Well,
I would say yeah, right. That's probably intended. Let's see. Let's just check it out. Starting at second level, you can use your action to magically assume the shape of a beast you have seen before. Okay, no problem.
So it's
when you choose a circle, so you gain the ability to use it on your turn as a. Oh, it says rather than as an action. Then no.
Says but it says you retain the benefits of any features from your class, race, or other source that can use them in the new form. So like
I know, but the actual ability itself prevents you from doing it. So it says you gain the ability to use wild shape on your turn as a bonus action rather than as an action, which means it precludes you using. That's how I would interpret it.
Yeah, I would rule that as well. I don't.
That's kind of a shame because I thought it would be cool if you could just like go from like a tiger to an elephant or something.
I don't know necessarily why you would want to do that. I mean, there might be rare situations where it could be beneficial, but so it's a bonus action instead of an action when you go to Moon Druid, and you cannot go from one form to the other. You must revert first by raw. Now, if you want to talk to your DM and say, hey, can I retain both? Can I go from one to the other? That's going to be between you two and what that DM is going to allow as a house rule. I've never had it happen in my game where a player needs to go right from one.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a pretty or a situation where they want to shift twice in a round.
Yeah, that's oddly specific. Just between you, me, and the internet, there is one like sort of workaround way that you might like that's sort of homebrew, and that is from Hit Dice to Heroics, which is another book over in our store, which you could get totally free right now, along with two other things until the end of the month. I'll tell you about that in a second. But we came up with a bunch of alternate uses for your hit dice. They can't wild shape twice in a turn, but you can totally vixen out and like do like like take on an aspect of a creature that using your hit dice. So you might like that. And if you thought you heard me wrong, you did not. I said you could get three products of your choice, not including out of the box, in the Adventures and Supplements over at Nerdarchy the store with the promo code Stay Nerdy, one word. Any three, you could load up I would recommend you load up your cart with all of them and then put that code in, because it'll take it'll give you a 100% discount on the three most expensive things in your cart that are Adventures and Supplements.
So yeah, it's a lot of great products over there.
That's our hottest one from Hit Dice to Heroics. People love that.
Well, I mean, we were talking, not all that long ago about the Gaze of the Void Eye related.
Yeah, you can get there. You go.
related to tonight's
Yeah.
topic.
Now let's see another one that somebody might like. Who knows? We still got 26 minutes, so we'll have another suggested pick by the end.
And I don't know when it's going to go up on the website, but I did some web enhanced content for
It did go up.
it went up.
Yeah. So there's even free stuff.
And
magic rings on, baby.
And I really like those particular magic items that I created for that.
Yeah, and the NPC is really cool too. And it's in like all our web enhancements, it's like you can just totally drop that stuff from the total 100% free post in your game at your leisure, or it sort of is thematically related to the product too. There's quite a few of those on the website.
Yeah, and then they're going to keep on coming, especially as we get new products, as well as adding more to the ones that are already out there.
We're working on our wheel of Nerdarchy, the adventure wheel is what we're working on, sort of as our broad project.
Right now. So I grabbed Gaze of the Void Eye, and I'm like, all right, this one isn't claimed yet. And as I started reading it, my mind began percolating, and I'm like, all right, I really like this, and like it almost wrote itself. I was very happy with how it came out.
The narrative elements, even if it was just an NPC, it's pretty cool. I dug it. Those are fun to do. Yes, I dug it.
100%. Before we go any further, if we happen to have anybody, new that doesn't know about all of the things that Nerdarchy does, I'm kind of gonna do this, not necessarily a week early, but I'm gonna do it, just to show it off again.
Okay.
Nerdarchy does for our patrons, as well as those who submit a form that's over on our website. We do a monthly giveaway. It usually is $50 plus worth of stuff. I've got a whole shelf over here full of content that needs to go out to the lovely nerds out there.
Yeah, it's usually closer to like $100 anymore. We get a lot of stuff in that giveaway.
We do, and we still occasionally get contacted by people like, hey, can I send you some stuff to give away?
Yeah,
absolutely. I've got a pile of new stuff from WizKids to add into the giveaway pile.
Did you get those Warlock tiles?
I did.
Oh man, those are in the giveaway pile?
No.
Oh, I was like, oh wow.
Those are for the table.
That's keeping up.
Did I get them? And I'm like, I wrote a post about them.
Sure. Yeah. I thought you got them and then put them in the giveaway.
No. I mean, I want to play around with them at the.
Sorry, nerds.
that one's being saved, but a thing to add into the pile. This is not what's being given away. But the Descent into Avernus, the miniature set that has Joe Manganiello's character.
Is that the set with like Archon and like the Death Turtle and all that?
The bodyguard Torrigar Steelfist, the Turtle Death Cleric Krull, and one of his berserkers summoned a white Abishi. It's got the Manticore pet Chango.
Wow, that's a sweet set.
The miniatures, the paint job, everything in this set is
it's really cool.
So this is going to be given away at some point in time in the future. It's going over here to the side in a nice pile of giveaway. But the stuff that's actually going to be given away, this is the box that will be mailed. It blocks, me. We got to do it this way. So from Gary Con, it is a set of Gary Con dice.
Those are like the classic, like old school looking dice.
It is actually, what is it? There's only 5 dice that are in the set. So it is not your standard, 7 polyhedrals. But that is the set. Believe me, I'm not
What's missing? It probably only has 1 D10, right?
It has only got 1 D10, and there's no die. Oh no, there is a D4. There's no D10s.
There's no D10s.
It has got a D4, a D6, a D8, a D12, and a D20.
Huh.
So from TNT Laserworks, we have another one of these dial counters, and this one says death is only the beginning of a new character, related to what we were talking about earlier. And then
it is.
there is this beautiful, beautiful book, and it is massive.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
this
I think
is
it's cool.
Immersive Battle Maps by Yarrow Studios. It is a towering, towering book. And then as you fold it out, it has got gorgeous, once I get to them, gorgeous battle maps. And the book just completely folds down on and lies flat on your table.
Man, that is a
I'm
sweet
not going to flip
resource
through
to have in your
all
DM
of them.
toolbox.
But it is a gorgeous, gorgeous book. And we
Yeah,
will
that's a really cool resource to have in your DM toolkit.
So we will go ahead and select a name. I do believe next Monday is the giveaway for that. So all you have to do is head over to patreon.com/nerdarchy and join us over there. Doing even $1 a month guarantees you an entry. But if you're going to do that, you could pay another $1 and get our monthly product on top of that as well. Don't mean for this to be, a complete another sales pitch, but
Pitch it, man. Go.
sadly I will.
Do it.
So once Monday rolls around next week, I will go through and I will pull out a name. I'll also pull out the list for the people on Patreon and those in our newsletter to be able to game with yours truly next month. June is my month to do a fan game. And there's two ways to get in on that. We go to our patrons and we add into that everyone who has double clicked into our newsletter, because there's the newsletter and then there's a secondary list that you sign up for, which is the game with us. So yeah.
Hey, you know what? So while we're hanging out with Patreon, I might as well ask them. I've been sort of like mildly poking around to see what people think. I started a discussion on this channel discussion page. I'm curious, maybe what you think and what they think, and like what sort of things we might explore on this channel. You mentioned our monthly fan one shots. Maybe we can have 2 of those a month or something, or I'm not saying we are. We hadn't even discussed this prior to me bringing it up right now with Ted live, but
Well,
so
I mean,
just make it clear, like we're not planning anything. But somebody had mentioned like, oh, I'd love to see like a game of somebody playing Dark Sun. So it's like, I don't know. Some people seem interested in live games, maybe not all the time, but
that is definitely a thought. And you can always submit those kind of things to us through Patreon Messenger, and be able to say this is what I'd like to see with the new channel. We haven't really discussed it, but there is a possibility of, should people so desire, the fan game could kind of go back to being a live broadcast thing to see what exactly it looks like. I know with the new channel where we were talking, today, that all of our live content is going to be going over there, which means the monthly RPG crate that I run is going to move over there. I'm gonna have to let the people over at RPG Crate know about that. And
hey, you as far as streamers go, from my just casual observations, Nerdarchist Ted is totally crushing it in the stream game audience. You get a lot of viewers. That's a popular people like watching it. A lot of our gameplays people have enjoyed. So
it's a good set of material. I modify it to be more my style and streamlined for the 2 to 3 hour content. We curated a great set of gamers, role players that are in the niche. So I mean, their best fans are following them, and I think it's a really great condensed game that shows that, all right, there's modifications that can easily be done. I was talking to people, and like, oh, is that magic item that they got, is that straight out of the book? No, some of them are, but that particular one, the axe, that's entirely a Tedism. I love creating magic items. It's one of my favorite things. When I get behind the GM screen, I want to make things that are that speak to me as a magic item. I want to tailor it to your character and tailor it to the style of game that I want to run. And then, the other side, I'm going to make monsters that are, my thing. And, that I don't typically do. I use their stat blocks, their information. But it's one of those things that I'm like, all right, well, I can modify this magic item and have fun. Because initially that great axe that giggles and offers advantage on damage dice, which is something that's incredibly powerful for a great axe. It was just supposed to be a +1 longsword, and I've had it attributed to something that happened in that particular
Yeah.
household where the smith created it. But I turned it into a great axe because that is what the party needed. The
Mhm.
barbarian primarily fights with a great axe. So I'm like, you know what? No, I'm gonna do this. So I made that change, and then I've been slowly altering it, and that Smith's child is making himself known as his spirit has kind of gotten pulled into the axe. So
You know,
yeah.
that's the cool thing. I was thinking as you were saying, like, you could just like a lot of people. I ask us and just random people on the internet, like for DM tips, or like they're gonna start DMing for the first time. There's so many like tools and things and things to help you have cover your needs, and then at the same time let you explore your creativity. That's what's cool. So you were talking about, like, what you're making your stuff up, and that's what you like to do. So it's kind of probably cool for you to have, like, okay, well, I have somebody wrote the basic adventure, and then the skeleton of it's something to go on, or whether you're running Waterdeep Dragon Heist, or whatever, right? It's like it's something. And then, say if you like to write, well, then you can write some other encounters, or like if you like to make monsters, then make up monsters and have the party face them. Like, there's so many ways to sort of like customize your experience, and like we use that term toolbox all the time. It's like, it's true. I mean, just knowing what helps you, and then you can
So
spend your time doing the things that you're good at and that you like to do as a DM.
if you are looking to get into DMing and you aren't sure of what it's going to be like, perhaps your gaming group is willing to either get together a little bit early, stay a little bit late, and you're like, look, I'm going to do one encounter just to see how I hold up. There are tons of free encounters over on the website, all written in pretty much the same style, which Nerdarchy is kind of taking as to be our own. It was initially created by Mike Gould, the author, a primary author on Out of the Box Encounters, um, and I've begun writing so many things, in that vein, and I really do like that particular format, and it makes it very very useful for new GMs as well as veterans, because it's got a section on, hey, here's how things could go wrong.
Yeah.
Here's how you might want to handle that.
Or right, like a lot of times the things are just like, hey, just so you know, because it's sort of based on drawn on our experience of, like, players might get really interested in this thing, which totally, I'm just telling you right now, doesn't have anything to do with the adventure, but they might, because it's like a cool painting or whatever, just something, or like a ledger that they find.
But to me, anytime somebody decides to pay too much attention to something that was a
Oh yeah,
non-essential detail, it has become an essential detail.
yeah,
It might not be
absolutely.
related at all to what's currently going on, but it's related to something later.
Several years ago, one of the players in my Spelljammer game, he was this first time he was ever playing D&D, and we played for several months, and he was like, oh, it's just weird that, like, everywhere we go is just sort of like coincidentally seems to be related to the overall plot. I'm like, well, yeah, because that's it's like it would be kind of silly if it nothing had anything to do with anything, right? It's like that's sort of the conceit of the game, right? So that's why I like those sort of encounter things too, because we'll say, oh, it's just an encounter. I've run many of our out of the box encounters, and like that was the session. Like they'll take like 2.5 hours of like, what does that mean? Like, who is that guy? Or traipsing through the woods or whatever. So if you look at DMing that way in just those little chunks, it's like, well, just run an encounter like you said, and then just be like, well, they really seem to connect with Farmer Jethris and his abyssal chicken problem. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they like that character. So then, just do something else with that character.
Oh, that was another fun one to write.
Yeah.
I gotta say.
But I mean, wouldn't you agree? It's like just take it like an encounter, a couple of encounters for a day. You're good for a couple hours for sure. Unless people just are like the kind of players that just.
But I mean, even just saying, look, I'm gonna run one thing and seeing how it, literally the DM could just say, look, I am going through whatever I've got. When this material is dry, I'm stopping, and if I'm inclined, we can kind of pick up here and move on. But to just grab one encounter, and it could be, hey, here is a 10-minute conversation. There is zero combat. All right, it's over.
You did it. You played D&D. You ran a game.
And you've sat behind a GM screen to see what it's like.
Yeah.
Now, there are so many people out there that are terrified to get behind that screen because they don't know what it's like. And so many players feel like, oh, well, if somebody sits behind the screen, well, I'm locked in for 2 to 3 hours. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really great point.
It's behind me over here, and I know this is not D&D, but No Thank You Evil is a great game. I've played it with my family, and it's a scenario where typically your game time is like 30 to 45 minutes.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was that short.
You can play longer, but that's how it's designed, because it's designed to be able to allow kids of younger ages.
Oh yeah. Okay, kids, we're gonna sit down for 4 hours at the table. Yeah, I'm not gonna go for that.
My daughter is 8. She really doesn't have the attention span to sit for 4 hours. But typically when we play D&D, that's what happens. So she winds up, sitting there drawing, and I'm like, look, you have to make the choice of you're at the table and playing, or you've moved on and you're not playing anymore. So if there's not combat or something that she has an interest in talking to, she's got to just sit quietly and draw and waiting for something to happen. So she's loosely paying attention. So a lot of stuff has happened that are frog related recently to keep her attention drawn.
Yes, which is another free encounter. I'll say right now. Speaking of grung, that reminded me, somebody asked a long time ago about grung, and somebody was interested in playing a grung rogue. I'm all for grung player characters, love them, have played them. One thing to note, they only speak grung. You might more than likely you're going to get a language from another proficiency or background or something, unless you go out of your way not to, like I did. And they only spoke grung. But keep that
sorry, you didn't make it out such a 0.
Yeah. Both my characters for that same game. That was 30% of my character deaths in the last decade were in that 3 session campaign.
That is rough, my friend.
That's fun. It is actually, like I was saying earlier, there is a lot of characters that I'd like to play. I got to try out a grung that could only speak grung, which is cool. I had some cool role playing. Got to try the Extreme Adventurer from over in the Flagship channel and the Pay What You Want in the DMs Guild, along with 32 other things. Man, we make a lot of shit, dude.
I've got far too many to list. I'm waiting for a long-term campaign to start. Like, not one of these, 3 to 4 sessions.
My hopes are dashed. I'm never going to play a long game.
But, I absolutely need to revisit Freckle Gurglop, which, you can see his exploits with his talking mushroom somewhere on the channel from years and years ago.
I do have a recommendation for you, though, because we've sort of touched on this several times. I know you have a lot of beloved characters. Just play them in one-shots. I do that all the time, and they sort of develop in my mind, where it's just like, their personality is affected by what they've done before, even if it wasn't for those characters. So it's kind of fun, because I've just given up. Like, I'm never going to get to play a long-term campaign. Longest campaign I ever played was actually with Power Score RPG, where I played Gus, the Svirfneblin Spore Druid, and I love that character. He was awesome. Played from 3rd to 10th level, and that just kind of fizzled out, but that was really fun. Characters awesome.
I'm curious to know what Like I don't know, did we discuss with Megan as the DM how long their campaign was planning to be?
No.
Okay. Because I'm loving the crap out of that game for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that is a really fun game. I really enjoyed making that character. I've been doing that a lot lately of just using a lot of random tables, like whether it's just the bonds and flaws or like the Xanathars, this is your life. Those are awesome, man. I wound up with a Fire Genasi Storm Hero Barbarian who grew up on like the elemental plane of fire, and his mother was an Afridi, and he had like a brass dragon mentor and stuff. It's like, and that was just from like rolling and filling in a few details on those tables. But I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then the connections we already had with our other characters.
So I mean, this is not a game that's being streamed,
Right.
but years ago, 2017, Nerdarchy was a guest at a convention, Cleveland,
Was that
Kentucky.
that long ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
we met Nerder Doug and author Megan R. Miller, and we convinced Megan to run a game. And for I don't know whether it was
just told them to run a game. Or no, that's what you guys did to me.
we told you to run a game at like midnight the night previous. But that's what you do sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I loved it.
But we convinced Megan to run a game, and we started coming up with this crazy scheme of us all playing half races, and that we're all half brothers, half siblings, if you will. And it just it sparked, and it was fabulous. And we played it once, and it was just there. But all of us have kind of had this thing percolating, and some couple months ago, whatever, we started to be like, hey, let's get a Nerdarchy game together, totally offline, or not streamed.
Yeah.
And just for fun, just to kind
of,
of
nice, isn't it?
Oh, it's great. And we're doing it stupid early in the morning, just because all of us have crazy schedules that we have to meet. And we started doing this thing, and Doug took a break, and as we realized we were getting close to the end of his game, we're like, hey, Megan, would you be interested in redoing or starting that campaign up again? And they were like, oh, I am on. So I couldn't find my character, so I had to remake him. But I believe he's pretty on point with what he was before. And I love this group because the barbarian is our smart person.
Yeah.
This, I don't think I've ever had that happen before.
This is, oddly enough, this is the second adventuring party where I've played the smartest person in the group. That was also barbarian. It was our Dragon Heist game, which was one of my favorite games ever. Yeah, I mean, Megan, they're a great DM. Like, I really just like fell into the world, and I was like, oh, I can totally picture this, and the cool. I love the sibling thing, and even Dave's Beast Master Ranger Giant Crab is is one of our siblings, and it's cool because I feel like I had a personal goal, and then there's like a party personal goal, and then our adventuring goal. So it's like, wow, there's like a lot of right off the bat, like right from the get go. So,
yeah, from moment one, like I've got pseudo goals.
Right.
I don't know if I've ever really played the lecherous character before, but like I'm playing a very charismatic kind of person who, by the story we have, our father went around and made lots of kids, and we all know how that's supposed to happen. So it totally would make sense for me to possibly fall in his footsteps. And I am the only one that's maybe I don't know what our sister's charisma is, but I believe you and Dave are kind of mediocre.
Yeah.
So I got his looks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, I'm gonna go with that. But like from a serious standpoint, I wrote in that my prized horse was kind of like left at a fling's place.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So whenever my character mentions midnight, he's talking about his mare, his horse.
Okay.
That he wants to he wants
That's
to
awesome.
retrieve at some point in time. But
I wish I didn't know that now. That would have been funny. Like, wow, he really misses her, huh? They meet him one day. Hey, and Bobby brought it back around since we're right up on the time. Does anyone know of any modules for 5e that are set in modern or future style settings? So we were trying to think of a third Nerdarchy product for you to get totally free with that Stay Nerdarchy coupon. I'm going to say Trip to the Planar Zoo. It's not exactly sci-fi, but it's got sci-fi elements, so you can get Trip to the Planar Zoo, Gaze of the Void Eye, From Hit Dice to Heroics, Stay Nerdy, boom, all free. But aside from that, I mean, anybody's homebrew that's like sci-fi and stuff, like Esper Genesis or Hyperlanes, or there's an updated Barrier Peaks. It's still the same system, so you could probably, even if it was like a different, like Esper Genesis is like a different, a fifth edition game, but it's still the same mechanics. So I mean, if you found adventures from there, I've always wanted to do I've always wanted to have a one shot of like a long term campaign where they wound up in like the real world for a session, because I wonder how long it would take of you describing things where they're like, wait a minute, are we like in Williamstown, New Jersey? Right?
Well, so Nerdarchy Saves the World. It wound up being a very short.
Oh, that's right.
We did play modern fifth edition.
Right.
But I mean, we knew, like, we were playing as ourselves, and we unlocked, powers. Like, I was a cleric of the city. So I guess, the closest city to us here is Philadelphia. So, like, I had that connection. And we all know that, Ted's favorite class is cleric. So it made a lot of sense. Um, so like there was a lot of, fun things that were done with that game. But due to some crazy magic items, some random rolls, it wound up ending much shorter than it was supposed to. But so yeah, we've done some modern stuff. I ran a game. It was Mutants and Masterminds, but it was set in New Jersey, um, and I was literally pulling out maps of local areas and using buildings and locations that people I mean, we're playing locally here. So I mean, like, like, oh well, I know of that particular building, I know of that business. What do you mean this is happening behind? So like you
Yeah,
can.
that's a lot of fun doing like supers games like set in your hometown or any.
We did it. Dresden Files.
Okay, yeah, that would be really cool.
So
Like
like
just even a suburban setting, like or whatever.
so like very very street level magic kind of.
Yeah.
Not a full blown superheroes, because like there's it's it's
It's
pretty potent. But,
yeah, more than human, superhuman. There's
yes,
more
so,
than just normal Mondays.
so I wound up over DMing that.
What does that mean?
So every session, players get time to do X. So I had the players what they were doing, and then in between each sessions, well, what is the bad guys doing? And because I'm in control of the story, I wasn't putting any dice
They
behind
cut
it.
your monologuing.
The villains were always so much more successful than the players. So like, I was rating it to a point where I'm like, there's no way they can win. Like, this is no good. And I was actually I had a off-screen co-DM. Actually, the friend of mine who introduced me to the Dresden Files, he had moved from New Jersey back to Maine. We had gamed together for a handful of years, and became fast friends. But like we stayed in contact, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna run this game. You want to like do like regular phone calls and try to figure out the plot lines together? He's like, oh, that'd be amazing. So like we would call and talk and have all of these discussions about what the bad guys could be doing. And of course the bad guys were always super successful and whatnot, because the world is evil. And ripe for the picking. And
yeah, I guess the players were just blind to those villains' machinations. Huh? So with that terrible pun, before we go, I actually thanks everybody for coming to this new channel. I urge you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our live content. And then we still got our everything going on normal at the flagship content. And we'll be back. Dave will be here at noon tomorrow with Sean Merwin, who's a Adventures League admin and a really well-respected adventure writer and content creator, all sorts of things. So that's at noon Eastern. And I guess until next time,
stay nerdy.